President Trump weighing in on Twitter again this morning about protests erupting across Iran, saying in part that, quote, the USA is watching very closely for human rights violations. Here for a fair and balanced debate on this is radio talk show hosts Josh Kimbrell and Garland Nixon. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being with me this afternoon. We're talking about Iran at the end of 2017. Not really a surprise. It's been a common thread throughout the course of the last year. But these protests are newly erupted and seem to be growing by the hour. I want to get both of you your take on. So the president has tweeted 3 times now about this, I believe, which absolutely elevates the profile of these protests, not just here in America, but in Iran as well. What are U.S. strategic objectives? Garland, I'm going to give you a chance to answer that first. What do we hope to get out of taking a side?
Well, you know, I think the main thing that we can hope to get out of there is a stable government. If things, you know, there are a lot of people cheering for regime change, but they wouldn't be happy if we had like regime change and Hezbollah became the new government. So you want a stable government. I do think that the U.S. needs to stay as far away as they can from this, because when you have a government in the Middle East that is in trouble, the one thing they want is to be able to blame it on the United States and not have to discuss the issue of what their true problems.
The United States government always the scapegoat of choice for countries in the Middle East. We have to point out, Josh.
They're going to be the scapegoat of choice at any rate, though. I mean, when you look at this, in my view, this is an opportunity to reset the P5+1, the Iranian nuclear agreement from the Obama era, because it clearly demonstrates the fact they've killed multiple protesters now. We're dealing with a rogue regime. We're dealing with a regime that could care less about human rights. We're dealing with a regime that even with the $1.7 billion cash payment the Obama administration made to them in pursuit of this nuclear deal and the release of hostages has funded terrorism with it. These protests we are witnessing are because of economic pressure on the people of Iran. Well, the sanctions relief ostensibly was supposed to help the people of Iran overcome some of that pressure, and of course the government's not done that. This is a chance for us to push back and say the Iran nuclear deal was a mistake. We need to reintroduce sanctions. I think we need to push for a better deal or scrap it altogether. And frankly, the president did the right thing by siding with the protesters. We should do that. I think the United States aggressively should support change in the Iranian government.
Okay, so Garland, Josh picks out an important thread. There was a lot in that answer, but one thing I want to pick out in particular is the idea that the fact that these protests are going on today is evidence in and of itself that the Iran nuclear deal failed to achieve its objectives of one of its core objectives, which was to have, when sanctions were lifted, the billions of dollars that were opened up and Iran was now able to sell oil on the international market, some of that revenue was supposed to be steered toward the Iranian people. So the fact that it's not making its way to them, that the regime still has such a close hold on these profits, is evidence of failures in the nuclear deal itself. What do you say to that?
Well, I think we've got to be wary of taking that position, because let's not forget that within the Iranian government, there was some pushback against the deal by hardliners in the government. Where there wasn't pushback was amongst the people. The people of Iran were dancing in the streets over the deal because they wanted sanction relief. So right now, if the government takes a position that it's a bad deal, they're actually opposing what these particular protesters have argued for the reason you said. They saw it as a way to get economic relief. So,
but it was never
but
designed.
That never happened.
It was never designed.
That didn't happen. I mean, the point is,
but was it? I guess the question then, Josh, is: was it designed to do that, or was that just a convenient side effect that the Iranian people were sort of led to believe would come on the heels of this?
Well, the Rouhani regime basically had to sell it that way because the hardline clerics were, ostensibly opposed to any discussion with the United States. Of course, we found out the UK Telegraph was reporting that even back in 1979, Ayatollah Khomeini was in conversations with the Carter administration. So the idea the Ayatollahs have never talked to the United States when it's convenient is sort of laughable. But the Rouhani regime sold this to the Iranian people and to the hardliners as saying we're going to get economic relief for the people of Iran. Now, they also, in lots of communications we heard about behind the scenes, said, well, we're really never going to abandon our nuclear program. And I think there's 2 problems here. One is they had no intentions of ever helping their people overcome the abject poverty they're stuck in because of a tyrannical regime. Number 2, they never have any intentions of abandoning in whole their nuclear ambitions. And those are not peaceful nuclear ambitions. I mean, they have openly said they want to wipe Israel off the face of the earth and make America's streets run with blood. Back where I'm from in South Carolina, when your neighbor threatens to kill you, you don't give him time to get a gun. You try to find a way to stop the weapons program. And I think this is the time to push the reset button and say that we need to revisit this Iran nuclear deal.
All right, well, gentlemen, we've got to leave it there, but we'll keep our eye on these protests over the coming week, and hopefully we'll have you back to weigh in with maybe there'll be some positive developments. We'll be reporting on that.
Happy New Year.